just see it as like a never-ending journey. We're always learning. We're always learning from somebody. We can listen, we can read, we can watch. There's many different ways of learning.
Jack Sunderland is a man with a huge heart and a massive mission.
There's seasons to life, there's seasons to your year, and there's seasons to your work. And I know that I'm going to get really busy times at work, but I also then plan it into my diary that this is when I'm going to slow down. And when I slow down, I tend to really completely switch off.
He is the founder and CEO of Training Cave Boxing Gym, an organisation which works with the community, changing lives through boxing.
I think that's important as a speaker or somebody that's representing like their organisation or even themselves. And I'm prepared in my mind for what I want to say and what I want to talk about, but this is me.
This is an organisation which is very close to my heart as I sit on the board of directors, and I'm soon to become a trustee. Jack has so much to share. He's so brilliant, so capable, an amazing role model for so many people. And I know that this is going to be a fantastic podcast. I can't wait to speak to Jack Sunderland. Time to Speak is a space to pause, think and talk about the power of voice and the art of human connection. Through open conversation with leaders and changemakers, we explore how voice, presence and authentic connection shapes who we are, how we lead, and the impact we make in our work and lives. Welcome to Time to Speak. Hello, Jack Sunderland. Welcome to Time to Speak.
Hi, Roger. You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. People might be able to guess as we go on through this podcast that we know each other quite well. And it's always a pleasure to see you and speak with you, even though I think we only spoke yesterday, but it's really good to see you and have you as a guest on the podcast because you've got a brilliant story and so much to share. So I'm really excited about our chat today. Not a lot of people will know about your journey and you as a person, but also the life of Training Cave, which is your incredible boxing gym. So shall we go back and start, maybe not right at the very beginning, but from a point where you first engaged with boxing and why you did?
Yeah, but first I want to say thank you, though, Audrey, because I know you work with some amazing people and I feel honoured that you've asked me to come on, so thank you for that. So going back to, my first contact with boxing, when I was really young, I used to do a lot of training and exercise with my granddad. He got me into training from a young age. He used to take me to the gym with him from as young as like 6-7 year old. To be honest, when I look back now, I think it was because he wanted to train, but he was looking after me at the same time. And he wasn't going to not train, so he just took me along with him. But I just sort of fell in love with that environment, and it was part of my upbringing. I started playing football. I got into athletics as a teenager, and I was quite obsessed with being the fittest that I could be. I mean, the best that I could be. And I kept hearing about boxers and how boxers were the fittest and the strongest. And there was a gym that were in Cleckheaton, not far from where I live. And I just said to my dad, I'd like to start boxing as part of just to get stronger for football and get fitter for football. And that's why it started. Started boxing when I was about 15, 16. And it just gripped me. I caught the boxing bug.
So what does it take then? I mean, if you started at 15, what does it take to get to that professional level that you reached?
A lot of hard work. And to be honest, I did it all quite quick. So I started training in the boxing gym when I was about 15, but I wasn't doing it as my main sport. Football was still my main thing at the time. I didn't start taking it seriously until I was about 16 and a half. And it got to the point where my dad was a little bit like fed up of driving you around, like doing your different sports. You need to pick something now. So I picked boxing really because I was in love with the sport, like at this point. And I was just finding myself in the gym more and more. I was making friends there. I loved the coaches. And I could make my own way there. So it was just a bus trip to the gym. So, or I could even run, it was a 3-4 mile run. So sometimes I'd run, sometimes I'd get the bus. And that's when it became like my sole sport. I had my first amateur fight at 17, but then I had my first professional fight at 20. So I did everything really quickly. At the time, I probably didn't really know what I was doing and why I was doing it. But when I look back now as a coach and coaching kids and coaching young boxers, I wouldn't advise them to do it as quick as that. Maybe I might have had like a little bit of natural ability, maybe, or I had that fitness background with the football and the athletics, so I picked up the boxing pretty quickly and progressed quite quickly. But yeah, I think it takes a lot of hard work. The professional game is different to the amateurs. There's a lot of amateurs that actually train like professionals when they're up on England and Great Britain. So yeah, there's a lot of hard work that goes with it. You have to live it. You have to live the sport.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting what you literally just said there. You have to live it because you're still living it. So something that started with your granddad probably when you were very young, but then for you training from 15, you've never stopped living it. It's become your whole life and lifestyle, which I think is very true of many people in sport, isn't it? Even if you retire from being a professional, it's still a huge part of your life, and a major interest in your life until you can no longer even watch it on the TV. It's there, it's everywhere, isn't it? And I think because obviously I'm always thinking about communication and speaking, and I'm a huge advocate of actions speak louder than words. It's not always about the words you say, it's about how your whole voice comes across. And I think in boxing, we see that it's so physical, isn't it? And those actions do speak louder than words. And I'm curious to know how you feel about that when you're in a sport such as boxing, which is so physical, how you express yourself through that activity. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because there's a lot of work that goes into the end product, and I suppose the end product is a complete reflection on yourself and the environment that you've trained in and the coaches that have coached you. There's such a build up to that. And I think you'll see there's a lot of boxers that are in the media a lot that sell themselves really well, that can speak it, and they're at that level because they can also do it as well. And I think that's a big part of the professional game is that they can sell themselves, sell tickets. They're worth a lot of money in that way to the media, but they can also fight. But a lot of talking can be done, but it is only the actions that win you the fights, isn't it? So, it goes hand in hand, especially at a professional level. I think at an amateur level, it don't really matter as much, but they express themselves in different ways, I suppose, in the skill that they show on the night. But there is a part of me that wants to develop that in the young people that we work with, and so that they're confident in speaking.
Yeah. It's a fine line, isn't it? Because like you say, there are some boxers out there and they're literally grandstanding. It's selling tickets and, clickbait on social media. And that's not it, is it? It's actually the fighting that does all the talking. But there's something else there, which I think is really interesting. It's that internal monologue that really helps you to win the fight. So obviously you've got the physical capability, but it's how you talk to yourself on the inside and how you tell yourself that you can do it and how you can push through pain and push through that level of fatigue in order to win, to be that champion fighter. Do you agree that internal monologue might actually be a little bit more powerful than external monologue in boxing?
Yeah, we talk about this between us as coaches, like in our gym, that we're coming round to the fact that we think that is actually more important than some of the physical training that we do, is the way that the boxer thinks about themselves, how confident they feel. Even us as coaches, taking them into that ring, are we giving off anything that makes them feel confident or not confident? So we look at the real bigger picture. And absolutely, I think you could get some boxers that aren't well skilled, but they really truly believe in themselves and they work hard and they train hard, and they end up getting further than a lot of the ones that have got that natural ability. Obviously, it's nice if someone's got a mixture of both. But us as coaches and the lessons that we've learned as boxers as well, especially, and and working with young boxers, we have come to realise that the mental side of it is such a massive part of it. Massive part of that. Yeah, we've been seeing some really good boxers that have like sparred with national champions and sparred with professionals at 15, 16, and like, you know, dropped them, handled them absolutely fine. Come to competition, they can't pull trigger at night, and it's a mental block.
Yes, yep. So I'm thinking obviously of boxers like Muhammad Ali, who, you know, came out with some fantastic phrases that we now all adopt and use to try and help ourselves with our own mental resilience. And obviously, it really does work. And again, it reminds me of a lot of the speakers that I work with. You know, when you've got those nerves just before you're about to speak or before you're about to go on stage, and the difference between a successful speaker and performer and one who isn't is actually what you tell yourself before you step on that stage. Because we all experience the nerves and the anxiety to some degree, some more than others, but it's how we move ourselves from that place to actually doing it and doing a great job that makes all of the difference. Again, that makes me sad as well, because then you get a lot of people who don't speak, as I'm sure you've got a lot of capable fighters who don't fight because of that debilitating negative mindset.
Yeah, I think I've come across a lot of young boxers that they pull themselves to pieces in the changing rooms before they get out there, and it's quite destroying to see, you know, for us as coaches, because we look at them like in the months leading up to fights and like, these are amazing, some of the stuff that they're doing in the gym. And then you just see it as soon as you get to the venue and they've weighed in, and it's like, I feel, you know, that you get the odd time when the same person can be really on it, and you're like, today's the day. And then you get sometimes where it's awful to see, and we try as best to pull them around, but it's down to the individual and what's going on in that brain. And I think, you know, I don't like to talk about myself, but I know when I boxed, I used to just think the one thing that helped me were let my opponent, let them deal with me. Do you know, like, I'm not going to overthink it. I actually don't know them. I've not stood in front of them yet, from a competitive point of view. So I don't know how they're going to box. You know, you can watch videos and whatever else, but you know what? Let them work me out. And I try and say that to my boxers, and I try and in the gym explain that you've got to visualize everything before you get in there. You've got to be able to see it before it can become true. And I try and do that myself, like when it comes to speaking and it comes to the work that I do. I try and like visualize it and see it and tell myself that everything's going to be all right. We're going to be fine. You know, we're going to kill it here. Do you know? So yeah, try to communicate that with the young boxers that we work with. We do try our best to do that, but it's difficult.
It is difficult, but I mean, the plus side of it is that you're reaching them young, so they can try and fail up and try again, and hopefully they're learning some really valuable lessons for their adult life, aren't they? I love what you say there. It's so true, isn't it? You are what you think. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah, it really is important how you talk to yourself. And I've had some difficult years over the last couple of years, and I've found myself like walking my dogs in woods and stuff and just being horrible to myself. But it wasn't until I started talking more positively and no, actually, I am a good person. Things are going to turn out all right. Do you know? And then it does start to flip. Your whole thinking starts to flip on a bigger picture.
Yeah. And again, you know, we all go through these times, don't we? We're human. We can't avoid going through bad times, and our mind not being our best friend sometimes. But it's what we learn from that, and how we can talk ourselves out of it, and knowing that it doesn't last forever, that we can move through it. So it sounds to me like it's, you know, you're being a fantastic role model, not just because of the sport and boxing, but because of what you've been through yourself and what you know really works for you. You can pass that on. Obviously, you're not going to be able to pass it on unless there's a space for you to do that. So let's talk about Training Cave, because that is the place where you do that. And I want to go back again, because we've talked about your sort of professional boxing, but after that, I mean, you retired from professional boxing quite early, so you can tell us a bit about that. And then you moved into your own gym. So tell us about that journey, because I'm sure so many people would want to know.
Yeah, so at 18, actually, I started working as an electrician. So I'm an electrician by trade. So I did that until I was about 24, 25. But I were doing my boxing alongside my work. I turned professional at 20 as a boxer. So I was getting paid for fights, not a lot. And you only fight a few times a year. So like the wage isn't great. It was more out of the love of it, and it was what I wanted to do. But I was trying to do that whilst being an electrician as well. I did enjoy my job, but I worked away. The company that I worked for, we were up and down country all the time. I were away from home, which were all right. It's okay when you're young, but I already had in my mind, like at a young age, that ain't what I wanted for the rest of my life. You know, no offense to them, but there were a lot of older blokes that I worked with, and they just didn't see the families, they didn't see the kids. You know, my dad was an electrician. My dad worked away a lot when I was younger. But look, my dad was brilliant with me. But, you know, he did work away a lot, and we missed a lot of things. I just didn't want that. So I started to, I thought, what else can I do? I do think I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset as well. And I used to I used to see some things that would come in on like the job sheets and think and see how much like the jobs were getting charged out at and think, I'm getting paid that per hour, but I could buy that. I could do that myself and earn that much. You know what I mean? So I've always had that sort of mentality. I had it at school. I'd be selling stuff at school. But I thought, what else can I do? What have I always loved? And I had to retire from boxing at 23. And I was missing that sort of competitive side, and that I suppose I was trying to sort of find myself in something else, because I'd always done sport from a young age. But actually, I was a young adult now. You know, I couldn't have my parents driving me around and coming and supporting me at events and stuff like that. It don't work like that at that age. So what else can I do? I got into like running marathons and doing triathlons and things like that. But there were just like something missing, and I wasn't happy with my job. I wasn't happy with a lot of things going on in my life. So I thought I need to change something. So I found a personal training course, and it were all self-taught. It were online. So I did that. I was doing that while I was working away. So I'd come back like in hotel rooms after work and like be studying, get the books out and stuff. I've not really read a book since I'd left school. I got my qualification in that, and I just decided to go self-employed, it was a big step, because I was on really good money as an electrician. I had a company van. I was at a good company that had work coming out of its ears. Like I could work every hour, every day if I wanted to, and earn really good money. So the day that I made that decision, like I told my parents, and it was a bit like a bit of a tumbleweed moment, because it was a bit like, well, you've got this trade that you've worked hard to get. You're on good money. You've got your own house. You know, I had an house at 21. Like, what are you doing? You know, but I just, in my mind, I just believed I was going to make it work. So yeah, just I left the company I was at. I had support from the owner. I don't think he was right bothered. You know, he had many electricians that were working for him. And I just went self-employed. I tried to do any work that I could. I was doing bits of electrical work. I was labouring on building sites. And I started personal training out of a gym. And I never really saw it as a full-time thing. I just thought, well, I'll continue to just work on building sites and pick up work and do my personal training. So I never saw it as a full-time thing. While I was in the gym, I came across a young amateur boxer whose dad saw some, you know, who happens to just know me, but I didn't know him. He just sort of knew me. We got chatting, and I started helping his son out. His son was actually a national level amateur boxer. He was competing at national competitions, and I was helping him with his fitness training and doing his pad work. And he invited me down to his to the amateur gym, and I just fell in love with training the kids. And alongside this, my personal training business was taking off, and that became a full-time thing. I was giving a lot of time to the amateur club, and I just thought now was the time to set up my own place, and that's when Training Cave were formed.
Yeah, so it's quite
kind of a long story short.
It's quite an organic journey, isn't it? It doesn't feel forced. It feels like, you went on feeling. You went, with what felt good and what felt right. You say you opened the gym, but I know it wasn't a gym to begin with. So
no, I mainly had it as sorry, do you mean right in the beginning? Yeah, it was just a storage unit. So yeah, we were a bit of a dump when I first moved in. Yeah, so we had to put a bit of work in cleaning it up. But yeah, in the beginning when I first opened it up, it was purely, all I had in my mind were I could use this space during the day as a personal training unit and start an amateur boxing club on a night. The amateur boxing club covered the rent. The personal training money were my own income. So that's how it started in the beginning. That's how, yeah. From day one.
And how, obviously now you're in a position where you haven't just got a gym, you're actually moving to a larger unit to accommodate the amount of people that you service on a daily basis. And you have so many different modes of teaching and training and connecting with the community. So tell us where Training Cave is now and what it does.
Yeah, so right now we're going through a few big changes actually. So we're currently a not-for-profit, and I can go into the story behind that because we didn't start out as a not-for-profit. But we're currently a not-for-profit, but we're going to be changing over into a CIO, which is a charitable incorporated organisation. So it's a form of charity. Back in the beginning, I was on my own. Now we've got 10 members of staff. We've got a board of directors that they're going to become trustees of the charity. And we've got a team of volunteers that help out. So at the core of what we do is the boxing. We've got the amateur boxing team. Surrounding that, we've got fitness classes for adults and kids. We've got skills classes, boxing skills classes for young people as young as 3-year-old. As oldest member, I think, is 84 now. So we provide all different ages in terms of the skills and the fitness side. During the day, we're very close to becoming an education setting, a full-time education setting. And then on a funding part, because we can access funding, we do a lot of community programs. So we do a lot of outreach work. We've got a portable boxing ring that we take out onto local parks in the States to engage with young people that are causing issues. And we work with the youth offending team, and we run holiday clubs for young people that are eligible for free school meals during school holidays. We've got quite a lot going on. It's a bit of a, but I feel like we're really finding us feet and knowing what we're really good at now. So I'm excited by what's to come because we are moving into a bigger unit and becoming a charity and becoming an education setting. It's a big year coming up.
And your fight team is incredibly successful as well, isn't it? You've had a few wins lately. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so there's been another process behind all that, to be honest with you, because when I started the gym, we went from absolute scratch. Nobody had ever boxed before in the area that we were at, so we were taking them from complete beginning, which that took a good year before anybody were anywhere near stepping into a competition ring. But now, like we've got boxers that are competing at a national level, they're in national competitions, they're boxing for Yorkshire, they're winning Yorkshire titles. This season, we're only 3 months in, and we've already won 4 national titles. We've won 3 belts. We've won 1 Yorkshire title in the nationals. And in years gone by, our record's been a bit 50-50. You know, I keep track of the wins and the losses throughout the season, and in past, it's always been 50-50. Say if we have 60 fights in the season, it's usually about 30 wins, 30 losses. I've got a little column of like what are classed as no-shows, where you've had like a boxer turn up and they've not quite pulled trigger at night. And I note that down. This season, I think we've had something like 15 wins, 4 losses. We've won, a couple of Yorkshire titles. We've had 10 skills fights because we've got a lot of young people coming through that are having exhibitions. And the no-show column is 0. So everybody's performing. Whether they win or they lose, they're putting in a good performance. We've got a real good culture in there at the moment, a real good set of boxers, and also the coaches that we've got are very, very good and they give a lot of the time. So it's in a really good position as a boxing team.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's incredible. Like the achievements on so many different levels is just, it's incredible. I'm just taking a quick pause from this episode to tell you about a brand new free digital product I've launched just for you. I've put together a collection of some of the best speaking tips I've collated from decades as a speaker, trainer and coach. These tips are a fantastic place to start to improve your skills and transform your communication game. As I said, it's completely free. Click the first link in the description, pop in your email, and I'll send it over to you. I've also put the link to my newsletter in the description, so check that out too. Now, on with the episode. Why do you think it has become so important to you to engage with young people and the community in the way that you do?
So I don't think I realised how lucky I was as a kid until I started running my own gym. So when I was younger, I'm not from a bad background, not from like a rich background or anything like that. A good working class like parents that have always worked hard. Good both sets of grandparents that I spent a lot of time with, and I had it good as a kid. But it wasn't until I actually opened Training Cave, and probably about a year in, 18 months in, and I were working with young people from like the local estate, different backgrounds. Basically, they couldn't afford to train. They couldn't afford like a couple of quid to train. And that really opened my eyes, and I just thought, God, how lucky were I to pick and choose what sports I wanted to play, and there were no issue to have a new pair of football boots every season and get a pair of boxing gloves bought for me, and my memberships paid for and things like that. So it really opened my eyes to like the world, to be honest with you. And I were allowing young people to train for free, and realised that I couldn't continue to run a business that way, which is why we became a not-for-profit, so that we could access funding to give opportunities to young people that otherwise won't get it. And it's just really important to me that all young people deserve a chance. And I think there's a lot of chances that can come through sport. That's just my thing. And I know that, like, for you, it would be acting, and for the people, it might be music. And I believe in it all. And I think every young person deserves a chance. But for my thing, it's sport. And that's what we've created here, is a sporting and a fitness environment that can give young people a chance in life.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you call yourself in some context an alternative provision. And that is what you're doing there, is you're providing a place, a home for people to come and learn outside of school, where school might not be the right fit for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because I'm hearing more and more that school doesn't feel like the right place for a lot of children these days. I don't know if it ever did for some, but it feels like it's a growing concern as technology comes in and things develop at such a pace. I'm not sure if the old way of working in education is actually working for as many people as it should or could. So something that you're providing, I think, is really fantastic, because you're catching some of those people who just don't feel they fit within that system. What do you think about that? Am I right in, is that an assumption I'm making?
Yeah, I feel so strongly about it. I really do feel so strongly about it, and that's coming from someone who I wouldn't say is very well educated, and I would, when I was younger, I would say school wasn't my thing. It wasn't something that I went to see my mates, and that was it, and to play sport and to play for the football teams, for the school football team, and my friends that I played football with went to that school, and it was like that was education for me. I won't say I was bright. I wouldn't say I got good grades or anything like that. But I wasn't naughty. I turned up. I did my days, but I was there for my mates, and I was there to play football at dinner and play football after school. So but I did recognise at a young age, though, that I had friends that school didn't work for, and the school we had, back then it was like just a room that these kids got put in. And it didn't sit right with me then at 13, 14, 15. So I've always seen that. And I've always thought, well, what about somebody that's good with their hands? I were a little bit better than going to get an apprenticeship as an electrician. I were better physically. So what about, there's many other people that are like that. And for you learned to what you did as an actress, and people express themselves in different ways. And I think that is important. I think there's a lot of alternative provisions getting set up now. And I think it's great to see, because there's that many different offers out there now. So the authorities could actually put young people in a place that suits them. And that's also important to me for Training Cave, though, that we don't just keep taking young people because the authorities are sending them. We want the ones that our setting works for, that our environment works for. You don't want to put a kid in our environment that don't like training, that don't like physical, you know, they'd be better. They might be better. They might prefer going and doing music or something like that. Do you know? And that, but yeah, it's I think the country as a whole is becoming more aware that it ain't working for everybody, is it? The current system isn't set up for everybody. Luckily, there is some really good alternative provisions out there that are opening up and providing a space for these young people to thrive.
Yeah, yeah. And we all sort of thrive and blossom in different areas at different times in our lives as well, don't we? I want to ask you a personal question. How much reading did you do at school?
Barely any, minimal.
Yeah, do you know what? I thought you were going to say that, because I just want to sort of make it known to everyone that Jack now reads loads. You're always recommending a book to me. If you're not reading it, you're listening to it. You're literally soaking up as much information as you possibly can if you think it's going to enable you to move on and be better and grow. And it just goes to show, doesn't it? You might not be that reader when you're at school. You might not be somebody who wants to absorb that level of information at that time in your life, but there's nothing to say that you won't.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to say that you won't have your own business and be successful and lead and manage people as you have done. If you don't have a degree or a master's, you can do it. There are many different ways to achieve success.
Yeah. I just see it as like it's never ending, do you know? And I kind of wish I had that mindset when I was younger, but I'm you know, it doesn't matter because I've got it now. But you know, I see like young people in our gym and they're upset when they've not got the GCSEs that they wanted, and I always say to them, don't worry, like you're 16, you've got so much in front of you, and like this will not matter in a year's time, do you know? And yeah, going back to the reading, I read all the time. I can get a bit obsessed with it, and my missus goes mad because I can't read fiction. I'm very much non-fiction. It's got to be quite factual. It's either about business or it's about personal development or coaching. So yeah, you've got to. I just see it as like it's a never-ending journey. We're always learning. We're always learning from somebody. We can listen. We can read. We can watch. There's many different ways of learning.
Yeah. What are you reading at the moment?
Probably again really boring, but it's I bought it last night. It's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy.
Oh.
Do you really want to go into it?
A little bit. Go on.
Yeah, well, it's just I think it's just at the point where I'm at the moment in like my own journey as like a business owner, and there's a lot of my work at the moment is around strategy and making sure that the pieces are moving in the right way and coming over problems and things like that. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. Yeah.
I've actually always been impressed by how you implement systems and processes so effectively. So we go from professional boxer and trainer to, right, this is the new system we're putting in place. Right, team, come on, and who's achieved what and who's doing what. You're so organised. It's just such a delight to see, and it's obviously why you're doing so well. So. Yeah.
Depends who's looking and who's listening, who might think differently on that. I think in the background, and I say this to like everyone that works with us, like our staff, that look in the background we can be messy. Do you know what I mean? We're allowed to be messy in background, and we're going to be, because there's things that crop up every day. A lot seems to happen in training cave in a week. Well, in a day, never mind a week or a month. So when I come onto board meetings and I've got to update every 3 months, I forget. I know I haven't reported on most of it. So there's always things that crop up, and it feels messy. But I always say to them at the front, we're organised. So when we turn up to schools, we're organised. When parents come in to speak to us, we know the answers. You know, we're organised at the front. In the background, might feel messy, but all that leads to is learning another system or a process that we need to clean up.
Yeah.
It
sounds very balanced.
Try to
be. I just want to go back to thinking about speaking, because obviously this podcast is called Time to Speak. It's about creating time for me to speak with people that I really care about and admire. So thank you for making the time. But it's also to help me sort of on my exploration and to help people listening to consider how they speak and how they show up. And so I'm curious to know from you why you wanted to get better at speaking.
Mm-hmm. So I think, when I've mentioned the dates before, Audrey, but I actually think it must be 6 or 7 years we've been working together, I think, because it were at the beginning of like the not-for-profit journey, and I know that was from 2019. So I think in the beginning, I wasn't confident in myself to, I was having to go to meetings with people that I felt out of my depth with, people in the council, schools, talking about social enterprise and things like that. I felt a bit out of my depth, but there were also the side to me, and this like burning sort of desire to convince people that what I wanted to do and where I wanted to take the gym was what was needed. And because I'd lived it and I'd experienced it and I'd seen it, and I knew that I could multiply it through the gym, so I had to be able to really talk it well. And I think that training that I went through with you in the early days, like really like springboarded a lot of things, and then it's just developed from them and into different things. But I think it's been massively important for me as an individual, but also Training Cave as an organisation, that I can talk it well, that I feel confident, but also that passes on to the people that work for us and that represent Training Cave as well, because I do think it passes on.
Yeah, because you do need a level of eloquence, don't you, to be able to help people who know nothing about boxing to understand why would you invest in a boxing gym. Also, who might not see the connection between the sport and what it can do for a community or a specific individual or whatever. It's helping those stakeholders to understand why they might invest or why they might sponsor or give you a grant or whatever. And that's really important, isn't it? And also, if we think about, it's the same for entrepreneurs who are starting out their own business. If they want to help people understand what their business is about and why they're passionate about it and why it's important to them and how it would be of service to another person, they've got to find a language which makes sense to others, and represent themselves in the best way when they're saying it. Again, actions speak louder than words. It's not just the words, is it? It's how you show up. And so I think what you're talking about there really counts for everybody who's got something they're passionate about that they want to take forward and develop.
You mentioned there that representing, and we have many conversations in our gym between us coaches. I have the same conversations with other boxing gyms, other boxing coaches. We know the impact that we have. We know that we could all pull out so many stories, so many case studies. But to funders, to schools, to sponsors, investors, those case studies don't mean anything because they've sort of been and gone. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be able to present your gym and what you want to do in a way that can sell to somebody that can take it forward and multiply the impact. So instead of having that one case study, you're going to have 10. Do you know? So it's all right talking about it and telling these stories, but again, like you say, it's got to go into the mind of the listener, hasn't it? And I've had conversations with, I'll use the council as an example, and it was one of the first outreach projects we did. When we first became a not-for-profit, we got 500 quid to run an outreach project, which, like, to us, like, obviously it's still a lot of money, but like the kind of things that we need to do now is a lot different to what back then. I remember having a meeting with the council, and they were like, "There's no way you're coming on this estate to teach these kids how to fight." And that were their initial thoughts around boxing. Luckily, I was working with you at the time, and I knew what to say. And obviously, it's not about boxing. It's about discipline. It's about respect. It's about giving these kids confidence. It's about giving them a space and giving them something that they can believe in and other people can believe in them. I said to him, imagine bringing a young person through on this estate that's been a problematic estate for years, because some of my friends grew up on there, and I know the reputation it's got. What about if we bring a boxing champion through on there? What do you think that will do for the estate? Taking him into school assemblies and things like that. That sold it to them. They understood. And actually, from that program, we had a couple of 6-year-olds that joined that program, and they're still with us now. Two of them are Yorkshire champions, so there you go. I were right.
You were right.
But unless I spoke it though, it won't going to get over that line, and I probably never met those kids.
Yeah, and in what you've just said there, you've demonstrated a key technique, which was when you speak to somebody, you help them to imagine. So you use the word imagine, and then you help them to create a visualization of what it would be like if you got to do what you wanted to do, and if you were able to work with these people, so they could then connect with it in their own minds, so create a vision, but also connect with it emotionally. And when you've got those two things, you create a greater impact. It's not just words that fall flat and they might hear. It's something that they hear, it's something that they see, it's something that they feel. And they can take that away with them, and it's going to keep prodding at them until, they take an action or come back and ask another question. Sometimes you gain a foot in the door, don't you, if you just create an opportunity for them to want to ask another question. Then it's the start of a really fruitful conversation very often.
And I feel like you've hooked them in. Then I think that you've got them on board when they start asking questions.
Yeah,
and I feel more comfortable then, because it's not just me.
Yes,
I can answer their questions.
Yeah, I mean, who wants a speech? You don't just want a one-sided speech, do you? You want a two-way conversation. Even actually, just thinking about it, when I'm thinking about when I speak or when I train other people to speak and deliver a keynote, usually everyone's come to listen to you. I always say it's never just you. It's a two-way street. There's an interaction there, whatever you do, and it's always got to be about them. It's never about you standing up there. It's about what you give. It's the value that you bring every time. Something which we talked about really early on, and I really love about you, is authenticity. That you have to show up as you. So you don't change yourself to fit in with maybe the people that work for the council or businessmen and women at a networking meeting or something like that. You don't suddenly put a suit on and show up. When somebody asks you to speak, you stand on that stage as you, the way you want to be seen. I think it's so important that you do hold on to that authenticity, because you're representing yourself, but you're also representing the brand of the organization that you lead. And I see that in you. I love it when you speak. We've talked about this. You've got great diction, but you hold on to that accent, the way you speak. It's very much you. It's where you're from. It keeps you grounded. You wear the clothes that you wear to work, your trainers, your joggers, your t-shirt, so that they see who you are day to day and what you're all about. And I love that. I absolutely love that. It sets you apart. How do you feel about it? It doesn't really matter what I think, does it? How do you feel?
It makes me feel really comfortable, and I think that's important as a speaker or somebody that's representing like their organisation or even themselves. And I know we've spoke about this in over years, haven't we, Audrie? And I just don't want to try and be somebody that I'm not. So turn up as I am. I'm prepared in my mind for what I want to say and what I want to talk about. But this is me. If you come to visit me at work, I will be in my shorts or my trackies and my training cave t-shirt or my training cave hoodie, and I will be. If I'm at a competition with my boxers, I'll be in my fight team tracksuit. So that is me. And to be honest with you, I'm probably that at home as well. So yeah, I feel like I'm wearing fancy dress if I've got a shirt and trousers on. So I'm at most comfortable in my sports gear. And I think it is important, to be yourself. And it won't look right, would it, if I were turning up to give a talk about my the boxing gym, but I'm there in, I don't know, like I say, shirt and trousers. I just don't think it won't match. It wouldn't match.
And I think it's important there that we're really clear on that. You're not showing up because you want to really make a point. You're showing up just because you want to be authentic. But more importantly than that, you want to feel comfortable. I mean, it's hard work trying to be someone you're not. that's a lot of energy wasted. So the fact that you feel comfortable when you're standing in front of other people is just so important, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult enough having to get up there and speak. So you're at a point now where Training Cave feels really established, and you've got that sort of ongoing connection with your community and young people, and then right through to like people in their 80s, and you're moving into a bigger space. And I'm thinking sometimes it's really easy to forget the impact that we're making, and also where you came from. And I'm just thinking of, can you recall a time when you thought to yourself, oh yes, I'm really making a difference with this person? And I mean, when did that happen?
There will be hundreds of stories and examples, but the one that always like really stands out for me with the first employability program that we ran out of his gym, and it was a funded program. We had to get the young people together ourselves through some of the services that we've got contacts with, and it were a young person. He'd come to us with about 15, 16 at the time, autistic. I think that's important to talk about because of the impact that I saw it had and the change in him. And he was travelling over an hour to come to the gym, but it was his mum dropping him off to begin with. She was bringing him. And it just didn't take long. It took a few weeks, and I just really noticed his confidence like grow, like almost straight away. And I don't know if he felt comfortable around me, and also some of the young people that were also in the group. Now we had some young offenders in there, we had some kids in care, so they were all from different backgrounds. This lad was from a really good background, but obviously struggled like with his needs. But after a while, his mum rung me one day, and she just says, "Oh, Jack, he's I was going to say his name because they won't mind, but Ben's actually wanting to make his own way over. Like, he's absolutely he's been terrified of public transport all his life, but he wants to make his own way over to the gym, like, because I can't bring him this week. Are you okay with letting us know when he turns up?" So yeah, like absolutely fine. But to make the journey from his house, it was like I say, it was over an hour drive, but he had to get a bus and a train and then a taxi to finish it off. So to think that he was scared of public transport, but he was going to do whatever he could to get to the gym, just to come for a couple of hours. And then that just became a repeated thing. He was just making his own way to the gym. He started to come he'd come a few days during the week for the employability program, but then he would come a couple of times on a night into his classes. And he just started making friends in the gym. I had a really good connection with him personally. And then I've seen him go on to get a job as a civil engineer, it's like within a civil engineering company. I've seen him go away with his friends abroad, getting an aeroplane and stuff like that. And I do think the gym played a big part in that, and it was just giving somebody that opportunity in a space that suited him at that time in his life. And that's when I just realised like we were really onto something, and I thought this just needs to keep happening. Like I think your typical stories from boxing gyms, you can get that coming from an hard background, and they've come through the youth offending and all that. We've got those stories. But I think a big part of us at Training Cave is we do deliver a lot of work for those with special needs, and we've got a lot of stories to that as well.
The thing is, you don't work with them to stay, do you? You work with them so that they can fly and be off doing their own thing. And
yeah, that's always been my mindset, even as a personal trainer. I used to think they shouldn't need me forever. They should need me for a certain amount of time and then go away and do their own thing. And yeah, I see that like with the young people that we work with, we want them to leave better than they came, and prepared for life as it is.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you're doing amazing things. You're a very busy man. You know what it's like to go through the ups and downs in business and as a community interest organisation. There's so much going on. And I know how busy you are, but you've also got a young family. And I know a lot of people struggle with this work-life balance. Like, how do you push through to achieve what you've achieved with so much energy and so much passion and still find time for your young family? Like, how does it work? I'm sure a lot of people want to know how you do it.
It's acceptance for me in knowing that I'm obsessed with my work and I love my work and I'm obsessed with my job. And but I also love my family to bits. So I've got to make both work, and I've struggled with it. I'm probably not the best to learn from, because I will be sometimes sat at my laptop until midnight, or I'll be up really early in the morning on it, before the house starts kicking off, But I think it is important to. I think for me, what I've realised to do is that there's seasons to it as well. There's seasons to life, there's seasons to your year, and there's seasons to your work. And I know that I'm going to get really busy times at work, but I also then plan it into my diary that this is when I'm going to slow down. And when I slow down, I tend to really completely switch off. So everything gets turned off, my laptop, my phone, and I'm not I can't be. No one can get in touch with me, apart from my wife and the kids. So I think I've pulled that one extreme sort of. I have to switch everything off, and I'm quite disciplined with that. And I recognise when things are becoming too much for me, when I'm feeling that bit of pressure on me, that pressure on my chest, where I'm doing too much here, and I think in the past I've not been very good at handling that, and I've got myself into some tricky situations. But it's really important for me, and I hope that maybe one day I might be able to help other people with that.
I think communication's important, isn't it? So being able to talk about your feelings and when things are getting tricky. I know that you've got great communication with Lucy, your wife. But, we're talking a lot about public speaking and effective communication and what it's like to be a leader. But really, as human beings, we need to be able to communicate personally, talk about our feelings and share the load and ask for help when we need it. So would you say that that's something that you've developed and learned a little bit more over time?
I've always been open-minded and always liked to surround myself with good people and people that can help. As Training Cave's grown and as it's become what it's become now, it's become more important than ever that we have the right people around us, because there's no way I could do it on my own anymore. That's just the absolute fact. And I'm lucky to have some of the coaches and mentors that I've got, like yourself and Malcolm, who chairs his board, and you've joined as a director and a trustee of Training Cave, and I've got some other good people on there, all professional people that can all lend their little bits of advice. But then there's also people that work with me that bring a lot as well, that do jobs that I can't really do, or that I'm not very good at, and they're much better than me at. So I think it's important to surround yourself with the right people that can help you. Yeah, and communication is key, because you can't expect everybody to just go away and do things. There's got to be an order and a process behind things, and everybody's got to agree that we're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. So you also talked about a time where you're not communicating, apart from Lucy and the kids being able to contact you. What do you do in those times? How do you chill out? How do you relax?
The immediate stuff I'd say is probably in the gym or walking my dogs. But then apart from that, I love to get away camping. I've got a transporter van. I get away in that quite a lot. Even if it's just a night or two, it can feel like a week, especially when you're out. We go up to the Lake District a lot, or North Wales, and I'm always looking for solitude, I think, and I like to split my time between that high energy work time, but I also need a massive downtime as well to let my brain reorganize things, and I think that's when I get my best ideas, as well as when I switch off.
I'm curious to know what you would tell your younger self. So say go back to 15, that first time training as a boxer. What would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now?
Probably just smile and just be crack on, enjoy yourself, enjoy the journey, try to take the good from your experiences and discard the bad, and just always try and be the best that you can be. So sometimes you might regret things, but I don't think we should. I think we should see it as it's a journey, and it's just a lesson learned. Could I have set my gym up younger? Could I have started boxing younger? There's always that what if, isn't there? But it didn't happen like that. So yeah, I would just say just enjoy it, and take the best, discard the bad, and always be the best that you can be in every situation.
Very good advice. Jack, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been a wonderful conversation and I really appreciate your time.
Audrie, like I say, I do feel honoured to be on here. Thank you. Cheers.
Well, that was the incredible Jack Sunderland. As you can probably tell, I think an awful lot of Jack. I've known him for a long time and he's always, no matter what, always shown up and given the best version of himself to others. And his passion and his determination and drive is second to none. He says that he's honoured to be chatting with me on this podcast, but seriously, I'm honoured to know him, to work with him and to have him in my life. I hope you really enjoyed that episode and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Time to Speak. If you'd like to listen to more, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and the podcast page on my website, audriewoodhouse.com. This podcast is brought to you by Audrie Woodhouse Honestly Speaking Limited, and it is an Actors Actuality production. See you soon.